This is Overthinking with Carmen, where spiraling isn't a crisis, it's a compass. I'm your overthinker in chief, and today we're talking about when what used to slap is no longer giving. So let's start here. Ryan Davis, comedian, disruptor, whole career made from truth telling and good timing. This man spent $150,000 of his own money to film his own comedy special. No big network, no major studios, just him, a mic, a little bit of money, and a mission. And then he was ready to blow up. So he approached Netflix, the giant in comedy specials, as they say, hoping to share his work with a larger audience. And Netflix's response? They didn't even press play. They declined without even watching it. I was listening to this story as he told it online, and I thought, this isn't unique to Ryan. Because many of us have faced moments where our efforts are overlooked, where these great institutions, the place to be, dismisses us without even a second glance. It's in these moments that we're confronted with a choice. We either pivot or persevere. And you know what Ryan did? He exercised his pivot privilege. He could have waited for the gatekeepers. He could have played that whole Hollywood game. Instead, he said, what if I stop asking for a lane? What if I make my own? That reminds me of this book I read many years ago. I was trying to create a startup, which I've actually seen the idea recently. Anyway, focus. I was trying to launch a startup, and so I was doing some research, and I read this book called The Lean Startup. And the founder said, startups should ask themselves every day if it's time to pivot. Not quarterly, not annually, daily. And I thought, damn, what if we lived life like that? What if every morning we asked, is the path I'm on still the one that serves me? Is the goal I set still in alignment with the person I'm becoming? What if the pivot wasn't panic, but wisdom? But because I was doing startups or trying to do startups at the time, I was doing research, and I found out that the same thing happened to Amazon. Amazon started selling books. Now they're the everything store. Streaming, cloud data, groceries, drones, dog food, even your toothbrush all shows up at your front door from Amazon. You know what happened? They pivoted again and again and again because they understood something we don't always give ourselves permission to believe, that the original vision might not be the final form. And that's not failure, that's evolution. Well, since I'm spiraling, my mind is going to our two great institutions, and that is church and state. So why don't we pivot there? No pun intended, or pun intended. But these are two institutions that don't like to pivot. Church and state. Churches, attendance is down, relevance fading, the youth not vibing. And what's the response? More fog machines and more trap remixes of Hillsong or Kirk Franklin, more lower the lights and bigger screens. And yeah, listen, sometimes it's not the style, the ambiance that needs to pivot. It's the spirit. Because if the message can't survive without the performance, maybe it wasn't divine to begin with. I don't know. That's for you to decipher. But let's talk about the other half of this dynamic duo, America. Or shall I say a 1950s America? The one that some folks today treat like it's the blueprint for greatness? Newsflash. The 1950s America is obsolete. It's not aging. It's expired. You know when it's time to pivot? When your systems are cracking, when people are drowning and your vibes are giving vintage racism. wrapped in nostalgia. So yeah, it's time. It's been time. And maybe you're not running a company. Maybe you're not leading a country. But still, you are the head of your life, and you deserve the pivot. It's your pivot privilege to ask daily, is this what I should be doing now? Because if life feels insane, and to many of us it does, if the dreams you had don't fit the person you've become, if showing up feels like self-betrayal, I've been there many times. And all I have to say is, baby, it might be time to reroute. Not because you failed, but because you finally are paying attention. Maybe it's time to pivot. So whether you're Ryan Davis with a grand vision, whether you're Jeff Bezos or Amazon with an empire, or some might call it a monopoly, or maybe you're just someone trying to make peace with the path that you're on, remember, the pivot is not a retreat. It's a reveal. I'm Carmen Michael Smith, your overthinker in chief. Thanks for spiraling with me. Catch you next week, unless I pivot first.